Roxanne. I'm here with our Content Connections. I'm the content director at Whirlidurb. And in this series of interviews, I'm talking with educators from zoos, museums, cultural institutions, nonprofits, research organizations, anywhere I can find an educator who's using technology to support educational initiatives and outreach programming. And today we've got a treat for you. I have with us Peter Robson, who is the Voyage Commander at Bubble. Now, boys and girls, it's not spelled exactly the way you would think, and it stands for the Bathysphere Underwater Biological Laboratory. So, Peter, did I get it right?
You did. Roxanne, that was impressive. Yeah, it's not an easy title to get out. That's why we call it the Bubble Project. And yeah, as you can tell, it's spelled a little bit differently, but the acronym works for us. And thanks for having me on the show this afternoon.
All right, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm thinking bubbles underwater. I think that might work into what you're going to be telling us. And so our first question is, tell us about Bubble. We know it's spelled a little bit differently, so Underwater Biological Laboratory. So tell us a little snapshot of what that is, and what do you do there?
Sure. So the Bubble Project is a cooperative effort. This is a program that was developed by Monroe No. 1 BOCES here in Rochester, New York. It is a virtual underwater laboratory, and I have the privilege of working with middle school and high school students during the school days. They come to a virtual environment, and we conduct environmental studies on the Great Lakes. So we have 7 specific areas of investigation. We look at the chemistry of the lake and what kind of chemical contaminants we're dealing with. We look at a biological aspect. We have an aquarium in the laboratory where we'll construct food chains from the microscopic all the way through the macroscopic realms, and that's a hands-on. Everything is hands-on. We have an area dedicated to archaeological studies, and underwater archaeology is a blossoming field. We investigate some of the 5,000 confirmed shipwrecks within the Great Lakes, and we have another station that's dedicated to marine geography. We are doing groundwater contamination and seeing what runoff can do, and especially in our concerns with a large farming community, what do we need to worry about as far as fertilizers and runoff? We have an engineering station that's designed to study buoyancy, and then we have a weather and navigation station that's calculating wind speeds and wave heights out on the open waters during the day. So it's a real-time weather forecast. It's all developed by the students, and of course everything is being documented with video as well as audio, and the kids are generating podcasts as well while they visit us in the lab.
Okay, wow, that's what I'm going to call you the ambassador in addition to Voyage Commander, because I'm ready to come and visit up there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sounds like that's a lot of the hands-on. So the students that are close enough can come and visit you guys. They're hands-on.
Right.
What about the outreach, like connecting to classes like down here in Texas, throughout the U.S. that are not close enough to Rochester? How does it work through video conference? Is it like watching TV, the kids just kind of come in and sit there? Or how do you translate the hands-on through video conferencing?
Yeah, Roxanne, that is a tough question, and it's a great question. And here's the thing. We kind of have to break that fourth realm. I would never want to appear to be the talking head on the screen. So the first thing that happens is if there's a student group that's excited to work with me, I have 3 different programs dealing with the lakes. There's one called Mysteries of the Great Lakes, and I talk about everything from the invasive species to the types of things we rely upon, everything from the water to the plant life. There's another program dedicated to just shipwrecks, and it's officially called Shipwrecks of the Great Lakes. And I highlight, about a half a dozen different ships that have gone down in each one of the 5 Great Lakes. I also look at a really neat segment called Ghost Ships. You can't have 5,000 sunken vessels without loss of life, and every time that occurs, there's a lot of folklore that goes along with it. And don't forget about the pirates that used to sail the Great Lakes as well. That's a fantastic thing. So that shipwreck program covers everything from the old wooden ships, the bark ships, to some of the newest vessels that are being in use today. And then the really cool, and I think we are perhaps the only company and the only corporation doing this today, is that I have an opportunity to broadcast from underwater live into your classroom. This is a live underwater video program, and there are 2 that have been dedicated. One is dedicated to younger learners, and that program is called The Rise and Fall of Buoyancy. and I get to, well, play with all kinds of things underwater, and the students get to determine whether or not they believe that these things will sink or whether they will float. So you actually are with me the whole time from deck top until I get underwater. And one of the other programs I've been fortunate to do now twice is I get to broadcast from the Atlanta Aquarium as I dive with the whale sharks. So this is a live interaction. I was able to connect with 27 schools simultaneously. If you're in the classroom like these groups are, not only are you receiving worksheets and all that kind of information, but the beauty of it is that you can follow up with me afterward on a personal one-on-one video conference.
Okay, that is fantastic to be able to video conference from underwater. I love that. Now, talk to me about that diving into geometry, because now I will tell you, Peter, now, of all my math classes, I love geometry the most. Somehow it just made sense to me. But I loved it just for geometry, but how does it apply underwater? What are you doing with it? Just angles and such?
Excuse me. Yes, the angles actually, Roxanne, is really important. Think about this for just a moment. You have a limited amount of air in your tank. You are exerting energy every fin kick. And so the less effort you have to put into getting your information and data, the longer you can stay underwater. Now, if I have a 400-foot ship that's down, that's 75 feet long, you work out the fin kicks and how long that's going to take me to circumvent that whole sunken vessel. But you've got to remember, you're in 4 dimensions. If I elevate and I hover above the craft, instead of area, I can use pi r squared or pi d, and that allows me that same area, half the effort at pi d, a quarter of the effort at pi r squared. If I have a ship that has an angled hull and I'm being asked to now float that vessel after it sank, I now need to not only calculate the volume of the vessel, I need to subtract out the incline. There is no 1/2 base times height. I can't swim under the base. But what about Pythagorean's theorem? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Or let's do the inverse. By elevating and using my computers, I can calculate the height difference of the incline. C squared minus a squared equals the b squared. It's the underwater, it's the application of your math underwater that saves me time, it saves me effort, and allows me to do further studies. It's all the angles on paper, but it's living it for real. That's what I do.
Okay, that was, and I'm going to ask you about, so the students are going to be helping you with the calculations and things. Is that kind of what they had to do, to write the Concordia? Did they have to use a little bit of geometry in with that? Because that was an amazing engineering feat.
Yeah, it actually was, and that honestly goes beyond even my understanding, some of that. But here's the thing. You're calculating out volume. You're calculating out, well, if you think about it this way, the cubic feet of water. Eventually you can convert that to pounds, and now you know how many pounds of water you have to displace in order to float or right a ship. So you're talking about enormous calculations. And the thing that happens is this. The students that are interacting with me, this is not a fake task. If they were on a research vessel, they're playing the role of a tender. And there's a tender that is specific to my safety, calculating out how many breaths per minute I'm consuming air, what my rate of oxygen use might be, the amount of nitrogen building up in my blood. Then I still have to relay information back, the depth of the ship, the width of the ship, the height. So every student is actually working on a grid. They're calculating out my air. I've got a student that interrupts me every 5 minutes and asks for an air check. And the team is actually working as the research specialists on the vessel. And my job as the diver is simply to relay the information. So I send the data, they do the calculations.
Okay, I am getting a better picture of what you're doing here. I'm getting excited about math here, the application of it. Now, the other part, Peter, is I'm very fascinated because, you know, we can connect through video conference to so many different people, but just as the way we learn now, and, you know, we have so much media, there's so much recorded video. What is it about that real-time connection through video conference that helps create powerful learning, in your opinion?
Okay, that is an awesome question, and here's the thing. How does a student determine what they want to do if we don't give them the experience or the opportunity to see it in real time. I can't legally take you scuba diving until you're certified. But you don't want to pay for certification if you don't like the water. So I give you the experience, and my whole hope at the Bubble Lab, at the underwater facility, and working at my other facility, the Space Guy, at one of the Challenger Learning Centers, is that it's all about career exploration. And I know it seems odd. Why is this gentleman speaking to us in a space suit, but he's talking about underwater? The connection is this, and it's twofold. Most people don't know this. For every hour of spacewalking that an astronaut anticipates doing, they must practice for 10 hours underwater in scuba diving first. So for every 10 hours underwater, it equals 1 hour of actual spacewalk time. The other thing you need to understand is this. The closest thing that we have to weightlessness on Earth is scuba diving. And so if you want to know what the microgravity feels like, it's not exact. But I tell you what, there's not a whole lot of places that you're free to stand on your head effortlessly. You can do it with me if you go scuba diving. And Roxanne, I think the funnest part is this. Everybody wants to know what kind of treasures I've seen. Everybody wants to know if I've been attacked by the shark. They all want to know about the gear that makes it possible for me to be underwater. And so it's an open conversation. It's not what I want to share. It's what you would like to know. And as the student or as the teacher, you lead the investigation. So that's always really an exciting part for me. And I have to tell you, anytime a student is on the other side of the line and they're saying, you know, hey, could you show us? And my answer can be yes. Man, that is a one-on-one experience, even though I'm underwater hundreds, if not 1,000 miles away. That, to me, that's valuable.
Oh, that is awesome. And I was thinking about, first, our landlocked communities that don't have access maybe to these underwater explorations. I was thinking about, I grew up in a town of 300 people, very rural, very small. Mm-hmm. So, you know, wow, to be able to connect and, you know, to see what you're doing and to teach and to reach those rural students.
Yeah.
What an amazing gift. Now, tell me, have you heard back from teachers or students after these connections? Because you said, you know, it's almost a career exploration and it's not what you want to share, but it's what they want to learn. What do you hear back from teachers and students?
Well, it's really humbling, honestly. It is the personal notes that have shown up. I was sent a T-shirt by my friends out in Montana. You know, the Bulldogs wanted them to be represented. I just connected with 2 schools in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska this past week. You know, the limits, well, there aren't any. And I have to say that my personal interactions have often now become working relationships well beyond the diving. And I love being able to call people. I've had a privilege as a teacher. Many of us as educators, we don't know if we've made an impact. I am very fortunate and really quite blessed that I have had now 4 students go on to be underwater marine biologists as a result of not only programs, but of coming to the underwater labs. I don't know how you justify what you do other than saying, here's a success story. And the thing for everyone on that end of the screen to understand today is this. In my opinion, and I'm speaking personally, there is a huge difference between cost and value. Our program costs more than most. Why? All you have to do is see the technology and realize how many people are involved in making this happen. So our program is in the $240 to $250 point. It lasts for about an hour and 15 minutes, and we have to do 2 programs per day because of the amount of equipment that it takes. We're renting a pool. I know this sounds odd, but we have to hire a lifeguard up there, even though I'm down. I don't know how they know I'm in trouble. But, hey, it's one of those legalities. We're happy to do it. But if you look at the price, some people would say, oh, that's a lot of money. I don't think you're going to do this anywhere else. And I think the beauty of this particular program is this. You get to enjoy everything happening live underwater with me from the safety of your own room. I can't think of a better way to try scuba diving than to come with me.
Well, you know, and I'm thinking if we could take 30 kids scuba, well, we just can't. I mean, we can't take 30 kids scuba diving. That is, so you did mention about $250 for connection. So cost topics, I heard you mention middle and high school students. So it really sounds like you're looking for grade 5, 6, and up. These sound like higher level.
Yeah.
Do you do anything?
And I probably shouldn't have done that. Well, I shoot myself in the foot because I was fortunate to go and work with 35 or 40 kindergartners this past week. And there is nothing more fun and exciting than watching a bunch of kindergartners that, while watching me, they're plugging their nose because they're afraid they're going to get water. I'm like, hey, you guys are safe. You know, you don't need to do that. So the little people, the younger learners, it is just sheer awe, and it is so much fun. The excitement can't be contained. And I've been fortunate to work with 2 senior living environments. And they were interested in seeing the whale shark exhibit because they are no longer able to make that trek and that travel. They were in Ohio. They're never going to get, at least until maybe they saw this, they weren't planning to go to Atlanta. But they got to see the beauty of the Atlanta Aquarium up close and personal. I mean, a whole lot closer than the big window. I had a 6-foot reef shark go between me and the camera person, and could I have reached out and touched it? Absolutely. Is that against every conceivable, common sense rule? Yes, it is. So keep my hands to myself when you're around sharks. But it's fantastic.
Well, that is, I tell you, the other thing that I'm getting from these interviews, and it's amazing, is the passion that I'm hearing from our educators and wanting to, help our classroom teachers and bring these experiences that students might not otherwise have had to them through video conferencing. So, Peter, as we wrap up our interview today, how can we find more? This is our shameless self-promotion time, social media, website. How do we find more? And I'm making notes, and I'll add them in our show notes today. So,
all right. Well, Roxanne, thank you. We actually have 9 programs available between the Challenger Learning Center, the Rochester Challenger Learning Center, and the Bubble Project. So the Rochester Challenger Learning Center, we have a program on energy transformations. We have one on simple machines. We have another that's brand new coming out in just about a month on fractions, which is designed for the 3rd grade. It's alignment with the new Common Core and the NGSS. We're doing other programming here as well. One is called Astronauts Living the Dream, and I share with you all the internal video footage of the space station, and we send food samples to your classrooms. And then, of course, the underwater labs is the mysteries of the Great Lakes. We have the sunken vessels, diving into geometry, the rise and fall and buoyancy. And it's our hope on an annual basis to do the dive in Atlanta. But there is a significant amount of planning and cost involved in that. And as we're able, we will continue to work those programs out with the Atlanta Aquarium, the Georgia Aquarium.
And so I've got, what's the main website where we find information?
The main one that'll show you all of our programs plus video clips is rochesterchallenger.org.
Okay. All right, I will get that linked in the notes for us. And I will tell you what, the way I found you, Peter, was I was looking for, one of our districts had asked for programs to deal with middle school and high school math. And so that's how I found that, diving into geometry, and it piqued my interest. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been a treat for me. And Roxanne, if you ever like to go scuba diving, you have an open invitation. How's that?
That's awesome. I can dial you from my studio here. So I want to thank you so much. That is Peter Robson, who is the voyage commander from Bubble, the Bathysphere Underwater Biological Laboratory. Also, he flies missions as a mission commander, correct? From Rochester Challenger Learning Center, correct?
That is very correct. Yes, it is. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's been great.
Here with Content Connections. I hope you enjoyed this and learned a little bit more about the power of video conferencing and the connections that we can bring right to your classroom. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thanks, Roxanne. Goodbye, everybody.